Hello everyone, my name is 9dev and today we're going to be continuing on with part 2 of the series on how to make a rarity roller. On this episode we're going to learn how to create functionality and code how the button works and learn a few new tricks on how to do certain stuff and how to make a really good rarity roller. So let's start with this. This is where we left off. Last episode we created the GUI. As you can see, we go here. This is our little GUI, and we did a little bit of the coding part just to set up what we're going to do today. First, let's understand tables a little bit. So on the last episode, we created two tables. We created the rarities table. It has common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. And we also created the rarity colors. And these ones are similar. They're kind of like variable types. We create a variable and we assign it a value. So we assign each one a color, gray, green, blue, purple, yellow. And as you can see, they are also in accordance with these. So the first index for rarities is common and the first index for rarity colors is common. That's going to be very important. So let's understand how these work. Later in the script, we're going to, first of all, make the button functionality where we press the button and we get our rarity. But we're going to want to spin it a certain way so that we know what we're getting and we know what we signed up for. So let me show you how tables work a little bit. As you can see, as I said earlier, these are indexes. Indexes are basically what place in the table they are. So like this would be index 1, common, index 2, uncommon, index 3, index 4, index 5. In some coding languages, they start at 0. So be wary of what coding language you use. In Roblox, they start with 1. And in many other ones, they start at 0. Yeah, so common's 1. And it's the same thing with rarity colors. And actually, if we do it right now, the way you print out the rarities is you just print. And we're going to mention rarities. So this is the table, rarities. And the way you access these is you do hard brackets like this, and then you type in the index you want. So I'm going to type in actually 3. And so this should be rare. And actually, if you play, you see at the bottom here, rare. Look at that. Now, let's try with the rarity colors. Like I said before, when you enter in the index, it should return what is in here. So hypothetically, it should return the color. So let's try it right now. Rarity colors. We'll do the same thing as the first one. Look at that. So there is a little bit of difference between these two tables. So in the first one, the table's rarities, these are strings. And in the second one, these are not strings. They're actually variables, or kind of like variables, because we assign them different. So in this, we actually have to be a little bit more peculiar in how we handle this kind of stuff. When we're mentioning these elements, we have to actually mention the name of it. And so the way you do that is you do inside the hard brackets, the same as the other one, you actually do quotations and you have to type in the name. So you have to actually type in rare. And now if you press play, this returns the color. So with this, there's actually a very unique trick. Say you want to get the rarity color rare, but you also want to have it synonymous with the rarity colors. This is what you do. So you type in rarity colors like I have right now, and instead of typing index or the string, you're actually going to type in the rarities folder, or I'm sorry, the rarities table. And in the rarities table, then you put the number. Because rarities 3 equals rare, and rarities color. So basically, this whole thing right here is going to return the string rare. So then rarity color is gonna see it, and it's gonna see quotations rare that was spawned from this, and then it's gonna give you the color. So if you put this here, there we got the color. This takes a little bit of practice. Later on, we're gonna use it in the script, and you'll see firsthand how it works. But this is kind of like explaining what you're gonna see later in the video. And it's a very unique trick, and it actually is very helpful when you're coding. So now that you have that out of the way, let's get to the meat and butter. Let me get out of testing mode. There. Okay, so we want to get this all working. We are going to start by making the first thing that's going to set it all off. We're going to set this whole thing off when we click the rarity button. So mention the rarity button dot mouse button one click. This mouse button one click works on PC and mobile. What this does is it takes the input from your mouse or when you tap on the screen, and we're going to connect it to a function. So connect, and then function. Now we're going to do no parameters, and then we're going to drop this down. And so now this is our function. We're going to put a lot of things in here. There's a few other things that we have to keep in mind. One of them is when we press the button and the roll happens, we don't want to be able to press the button again. And what I mean by this is, say you click the button and you're rolling, and in the middle of rolling you click the button again. All of a sudden it stops that roll and does a whole different one. And what happens in that case is usually is the previous function actually doesn't stop, it goes through, and then now you're like overloading the function. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So the way we're gonna combat that is we're gonna make a variable. We're gonna go up here, and I'm gonna just call it roll button clicked, and we are going to set it to false. So if you've ever seen these type of variables, these are Boolean variables. These can either be true or false. In this case, we're gonna set to false because we haven't clicked the button yet, and we don't want that to cause any problems. Now, in this function, the first thing we're gonna check before we even run anything, if roll button clicked equals true, then return end. Now this, you've probably seen a lot of scripters use this, and whenever I watch videos, they never explain how it works. I'm gonna explain to you. This is basically the easier way of doing this. Usually when you type a if and then statement, you drop a line and then you type whatever in here. In this, we would type return. What return does is when, say, you click the button and this is true, what return does is it completely exits the function. It basically says the function is done. We're done with the function and we're not going to go any further. So that's what return does. And so this is basically the more complicated version of what a lot of scripters do. And so when you see then return end, it's just that, but all in one line. So this is going to be our first line in the code. Now, if this is not true, right? This is false, meaning we have not clicked the button yet. Then we're going to set it to true. And the reason why we want to set it to true is, say, if it is false, before we start doing anything, we're going to set it to true. And that'll still allow for all the rest of the function to happen, but we just do this, and before anything else, just make sure nothing breaks later in the code. All right, let's get back to the juicy stuff. I'm going to do a little visual stuff here. I'm going to change, when we roll, I'm going to change the roll button text. Or, I'm sorry, rarity button. I'm just going to change the text. When we're in the middle of rolling, I'm just going to change the text. So, like, rolling, ... Just so we know what's happening. So when I click the button, make sure you do right now. Look at this little thing right here, we're rolling. And that's good practice so you know what's happening in your code. Now, let's get to the stuff we need. If you've worked with rarities, if you've ever played games, a lot of systems are used. Some more simple, some more advanced. Sometimes they even use like calculus. I don't know how they get there, but we're gonna be very simple. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get a random number between 1 and 1,000, and we're gonna set our rarities to follow that line. And the way you do that is we're gonna make a variable, and it's gonna happen every time you click the button because we want it to be different every time. We'll go random rarity equals math.random little lag spike 1 in 1,000. And what this does is, so we create a variable called random rarity, and what this does, it returns a random number between 1 and 1,000. This is gonna be very important later. The next thing is we're gonna make a random rarity index. You don't have to name it how I name it. I name it this way so I know what's happening. What this is gonna do is later in this code, we're gonna make it so that each time we roll, we get a random index. And this is gonna be pretty important too, because when you're rolling a dice, you get random numbers. And so we want to make sure it's random. So this is gonna be our variable. This, we're not gonna set to anything yet. We're gonna set it to when we actually start rolling. Last one is local previous index. And we're gonna set this to something default, like 0 or I like to do -1. -1 I like to do because it's not gonna show up, and it's really just there just to like for service. I just like to look at it like that. You could set it to nothing, but sometimes when you set it to nothing, there can be glitches. So -1. Now what previous index is say you're rolling, right? Say you roll and it goes from common to rare to epic to uncommon. We'll say it just went to common, right? And now it goes to epic. I'm sorry, we'll say it goes to common. What I want it to do is I want it to go from uncommon to a different one. Say you're working with randoms, right? We're gonna make it so that every time it like switches between a rarity, it's random. What previous index does is when it switches, the previous one that it just did should not happen again. So if common shows up, we want something else from uncommon to show up. So common shows up, then it picks a random one, excluding uncommon. So it's gonna pick common, rare, epic, legendary. And you'll see that later in the code as well. Now let's get some stuff in here. How long do we want the roll to happen? Well, that's up to you. You could pick whatever you like. I'm gonna set it as default for myself. And we actually put it right here, actually. I'm gonna set it again just in case, so we don't have any issues. I'm gonna set it to what I had it up here. Roll time equals 8. You could, and if you want to add some spice to your game, you can do math.random, like we did before, and make it a random number. And so that, could add some creativity to your game. You can do 8 to 10, 8 to 10, 8 to 12. You can make it so that if you're guaranteed to get like a legendary, it rolls like really slow. So you add that intensity. So it's really up to you. I'm gonna keep it at 8. And then index we have here. I'm actually gonna set it to 0. And actually we can go ahead and change it here. The reason I want to set it to 0 is because I don't want it to be anything. In fact, I want it to just be nothing. Not even common. And so I don't have any issues. Now let's go down again. So we have roll time, we have index. The next thing is interval. The reason I put them up here is so that not only do I know what they're set to, but I can put them down here so I remember. Interval, we're gonna just copy what we have here. Interval equals 0.02. I explained interval in the last video, but the only way you're really gonna understand it is if I show it in in real time. And so we'll get to that pretty soon. The last thing before we get to the roll is, and we're actually going to make a variable for it actually. So I want to make it so that when the roll is happening, that we're switching between random variables. So actually, let's make another variable called active roll. And we're also going to set it false. This is just so we know what like when the roll is happening. And back down here now, we're going to set it to true because we want the roll to happen. Sorry, I kind of made this pretty quickly, but this is going to make it a lot more better because we're going to get to the roll part. We're going to do all of this in what I call well, not what I call. It's actually a function, but this thing called task.spawn. So you've heard of task.wait, which task.wait just simply, full stop, waits for something to happen, or waits for how long you want it to. Task.spawn is this function. I love it. I love it a lot. Task.spawn is my favorite function in the task library. What task.spawn does is it is a function that runs away from everything else. So whatever is in here is going to run, right? Say I want to do like function, whatever, right? Say I do something else over here. Or do like, I don't know, print, whatever. Usually in code, it goes from top to bottom and nothing is skipped. However, when it comes to a task.spawn function, whatever is in here happens, and at the same time, the function or the code continues to go. So you don't have to wait for this to finish. It actually keeps going. And what are we not going to wait? Or, I'm sorry, what are we not going to wait for to finish? Or I'm sorry, not wait for to finish. What do we need to happen in the background while everything else continues to happen? The timer. So in this task.spawn function, let me remove this print. In this task.spawn function that I just created, we're going to create a while loop. And this while loop, if you guess, while roll time is greater than 0. So now we set roll time to 8. Well, now we're going to check is if this roll time is still greater than 0, and we do every second, that's not wait, every second, roll time is going to minus equals 1. So yeah, minus equals 1. So every while roll time is greater than 0, which it is because it starts at off 8. Every second it's going to go down by 1. So 7, 6, 5, etc. When this while function is when this while loop is finished, at the end here, this is after. We're still inside the task.spawn, as you can see, because this is the end. At the end of this while, we are going to set active roll, the variable created earlier, to false. And later in the function, we're going to make it so that if this is false, then everything's done. We're not doing anything more. And so this is actually our countdown timer. And this happens in the background. Now, the next part. While active roll equals true. Do. So now we create a second while loop. And this, guess what, is going to happen while this is happening, which is great. So we have a timer in the background. This is the task.spawn. And while this is happening, this is happening. Now, while active roll what? If this is where we do the rolling part. And it's going to be like this. Task.wait interval. Now, why interval? What is interval? Well, if you remember, interval is this thing right here. And this is going to be the time between each switch. So like comments from common, rare, epic, legendary, uncommon, rare, all that stuff. Next, we want to pick a random color. Remember in the earlier how I said all these are indexes? So right now we have it set to 0. This is like the default. And actually this doesn't do anything because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is also 1 through 5. We're gonna make it random. So index, the variable we have right here, and also right here, we are gonna set it random. Now I want you to guess what numbers. Well, we only have 5, so our range is gonna be 1 to 5. So this is gonna pick a random number between 1 and 5. Now, remember what I said about the previous index? So we want to make it so that when this index picks a random number, it doesn't pick the same number twice, because then like it'll just go from common to common, or like if you're really unlucky, it goes common to common to common to common. Like it doesn't look very good, and honestly, it kind of makes it look like the roller's glitching. So we're gonna make a while loop here, inside here. We're making a while loop inside a while loop. This, tell you, the code gets tough. This one's gonna be different. Index. While index equals previous index. So what this does is, so we go through here. So we wait for the interval, then we get a random index. At the end of this while function, we're gonna make the previous index whatever the current index is right now. So when it loops back, we're gonna have, say at the end of this function, previous index equals 3. So let's just put it right here, previous index equals 3, which would be at the end. So now we go back, index equals something. If index, the random variable, equals the same as this, then we want to change it. Now, how do we want to change it? We could do something really advanced, but I'm gonna just keep it simple. We're just gonna go up. We're just gonna make it up to random chance. Index equals math dot random 1 to 5. So we're basically redoing this to get a different number other than the previous index. There is a better way to do that. You could just exclude that number, but I don't want to get too crazy with this, so we're just gonna do that. The index is gonna re-roll basically. Now, if we get through this and we get a different number, let's do the cool stuff. Let's change the label. So rarity label dot text. So we're changing the text of the label. What we're gonna change it to is, if you remember earlier, we have our tables with the rarities and the indexes. So we're gonna make the text synonymous with this. So rarities index, because since index is random, right? It's random random number between 1 and 5. Say it's like 4. Rarities index 4 would get epic, and so on and so forth. So that's what that does. Now, the craziest code you're gonna see today. So remember how at the beginning I showed you how I printed both the rarities and the rarity colors? Now we're gonna see it in action. We're gonna change the text color. We're gonna select rarity label again. This time we're gonna do dot text color 3 equals, and like I did before with we're gonna do rarity colors, right? Because we want to get these. We want to get these colors right here. Close bracket or hard bracket. Rarities, right? Because we want to get the color of the table. Rarities index. So here's the funny thing. This returns the string, right? Say it's like this returns, like if it was 4, if index is 4, it would return epic. This, right, puts the string epic and gets that index right here, and that returns the color. So all together, we change the text of it and we change the color. At the end of this, interval is gonna go up slightly by 0.01. So this is what I was talking about, how whenever you see a rarity roller in a lot of games, as it goes through its thing, it usually slows down before it gets the color. And it's usually like a tension thing. You know, if you want a successful game, you want to make a game where people really feel like they're really getting something. Even if it's just all under the hood, you want to make the players feel like when I get an epic, like I really thought I got an epic. Like I was tense watching the roll. So this is the interval thing I was talking about. The longer the roll goes, the slower it starts to go. And you'll see it at the end of this video. At the end of this, remember the previous index we did? So before we go back to this, because this is gonna happen like 100 times. We're gonna set the previous index to what it currently is. So if index is 4, we're gonna set this to 4, so that when it goes back up here, if this happens, then we get a round number. And so that's why we made the previous index thing. Now for service, let's just go play and see what it looks like right now. Actually, look at that. And so now we have a rare roller. And I got rare, look at that. Isn't that cool? Now, let's add one more thing before we end this video. Let's add a sound. And actually, I actually want to play with this a little bit. Find like some random thing, like a tick. Maybe not a clock tick. Oof. Let's do, yeah, let's do the mini tick, why not? So I'm gonna do this one, and yeah, we just keep it on workspace, that's fine. I'm gonna rename it Rarity Tick. I just add a sound, and at the very top here, we are going to mention the sound. So Rarity Tick is in workspace, so local Rarity Tick equals game.workspace.rarity tick. And that's all you have to do. We're just mentioning this sound that I just created. I pulled out of Toolbox. Now where do you guess that sound's gonna play? Between each interval. So we're gonna put it right here. Rarity. I'm sorry. Yeah, Rarity Tick. Rarity Tick. Then when you play sound is you just do :play. And now if we play this and we press roll, every time it goes through the while loop, we should hear a ticking sound. And look at that. Let's see what I get. Nice, I got epic. So this is basically the quote unquote, I should say start to the end of the red roller. On the next part, we are going to learn how to finish it. We're going to learn how to actually get the rarity, and we're going to maybe learn how to do stuff with it. Say you want a game where if you get rare, you get a random rare item from a list of like weapons or armor. We're going to learn how to do that in the next episode. Today, we just learned how to do the roll itself. And I hope you guys liked it. We learned a lot here, and I hope some of you guys use some of this stuff, especially when it comes to these two tables. I know this stuff can be very confusing, and probably confuse you even more with this right here, but I hope you're able to use it in your games, and I wish all of you luck, and I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.